Right, we've got everybody here. We are to start with opening statements, and we'll start with Claudia Balducci.
Good evening, everyone. So nice to see you here tonight. My name is Claudia Balducci, and I am running for King County Executive. It is wonderful to see this turnout, because what this means is that you have a community that is willing to spend your time coming out to advocate for the community and to hold your elected officials and candidates accountable to be responsible to the community. I started out where you sit now. I was a neighborhood advocate coming out in the evenings to advocate for my community, which led to me eventually running for my city council, becoming a mayor, and then becoming the King County Council member for my district in East King County right now. I do what I do because I fundamentally believe that local government can make our lives better. And that's what we should do. I know how to make local government work to do that. At every stage of my professional journey, I have fought for change. I have brought big new things into existence that made my community's life better. I've challenged systems, asked tough questions, pushed people, sometimes got myself in a little bit of trouble because I insist on making things different and better than they are today. I'm the candidate for executive who has delivered affordable housing, thousands of new homes near light rail, homelessness shelters throughout East King County that didn't exist before I came along. Pushed light rail. If you watch TV tonight, I'm still pushing to get light rail built. I want to get light rail built in Seattle. In these challenging times, we should, thank you. We should demand better from our government. King County spends $10 billion a year. And we need to see the benefits of that. We need to see the social services we need, the housing we need, the homeless shelters that we need, the public safety that we need. And King County can be a better partner with the city of Seattle to deliver all those things for your neighborhood, for my neighborhood, for all of us. And I look forward to talking to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. It's so great to see you all here. This is our first candidate forum of the general election. I'm so excited to be here with all of our colleagues on the stage. My name is Girmay, Zahilay. I'm the chair of the King County Council. I'm a candidate for county executive, and I'm running because I believe with thoughtful collaboration and effective policies, this can be a region of safety and opportunity for everyone. I believe in what we can be because I know what King County was for me and my family. We came here as refugees when I was just 3 years old. This region gave us all the tools that we needed to rebuild our lives. Affordable public housing, good public schools, a social safety net, good jobs. Those things allowed me to go from experiencing homelessness in the Chinatown International District, living in public housing in South Seattle, to graduating from college, getting my law degree, starting my own youth education nonprofit, practicing law at some of the top business law firms in the country. But I know that that trajectory is not available to everyone. And in fact, I think it's literally impossible right now because the president just banned people from coming into this country in the way that I came into this country. And so we absolutely need to work harder and better and make this a region that works for everyone. Since I've been on the King County Council, I've been able to work with many of you to make sure that we have transformational investments in our behavioral health system for our colleagues and friends who are going through addiction crises. Investing in gun violence prevention strategies, increasing the minimum wage for our low-wage workers so that they can make a living. And I know that if we are able to win this race and become executive, we can implement even better policies and make this a region where we have enough affordable housing for everyone, where we have a recovery system that does not leave people outside in the cold suffering with their addiction issues, where we have connected the entire region with high-speed public transportation so that people can get out of their cars and we can save our climate. There's a lot of work to do. We have some challenging years ahead, but I believe in what we can do together. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Davison. I'm your Seattle City Attorney, and I'm seeking re-election because this position to me is very crucial to public safety, which now is the predominant issue that most people are talking about across our state. I've lived in Seattle for 30 years, and I've raised my children here. And if you don't know me, but in this neighborhood, maybe you have, I've door knocked about 23,000 doors over the time that I've been around in the North End, and this is where I've called my home for a long time. But my early adult life, I wanted to go, my new place was to go into places where everybody else was going out. Where the people who could afford to get out could, and the people who could physically get out could, but the people who were left were really the most vulnerable. And if you can recall Seattle in 2021, that kind of sounds a little similar. People were leaving and quitting the city because they didn't know what to do and they just said, I'm gonna get out. Well, I decided to do something different as I said goodbye to my birth mother and my adopted mother at the beginning of my campaign and when I took office. Because moms do things even when it gets hard. Because I'm focused on public safety to deliver it to neighborhoods, to street level, we can see a reduction in addiction, and a reduction in gun violence, and a reduction in prostitution here in the North End. Because as the first woman and mom to serve in this position, we cannot go by and not talk about that issue because it's disproportionately targeting women and girls, particularly of color, but we cannot stand by and not address it. So I am seeking re-election because this is a serious job. It is not something that we're doing just because it sounds interesting to do. It is because it is serious, and this is where the start of the criminal justice system begins, and where we have to build reentry at the misdemeanor level, but we must also be focused on the victims' voices, and that they are the center of the public safety conversation. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And again, good evening, everyone. My name is Erika Evans, and I'm running to serve you as your next Seattle City Attorney. I'm really honored to be here. I think how my dad went to public school at Ingram nearby, but even deeper than my family's legacy here in Seattle is my family's legacy in fighting for civil rights. I think about my grandfather who raised his fist in the 1968 Olympic Games for social, economic, and civil rights in our country, and how he won a gold medal. His life was on the line. He received death threats from the KKK, but he still used his podium to raise his fist and protest the injustices we were seeing in our country. And so for me, that's why I became a lawyer, to always stand up and fight back. It's why, as a lawyer, I've only worked in public service, from working in the Seattle City Attorney's Office in the criminal division, to being a defense lawyer for the City Attorney's Office and representing city departments, from being a pro tem judge in multiple jurisdictions, to most recently being an assistant United States attorney. The mic just cut, or it's still going, but a little bit. Oh. It's a lecture. Are you good? Are you good? Okay. All right. That one's hot. Sorry, the mic. We're good? Okay, that mic was like, Erika, it's been a little too much heat. So most recently, I was at the Department of Justice as an assistant United States attorney, a serious job. And I was a violent crimes prosecutor. I held violent traffickers accountable, people committing violence in our community, and I was also a civil rights prosecutor. But I left that role shortly after Trump took office because I saw the rollback in civil rights and our basic rights here in Seattle. And I'm running because I know we can do so much better on public safety that works for everyone, where everyone can feel safe and can thrive. And we can do better in fighting back against the Trump administration with urgency. This is a serious job. City Attorney Ann Davison's right. And with that comes needing someone with serious experience, and that's me. Thank you all so much.
Want that microphone. So my name is Bruce Harrell. I think many of you may know this community club has been around for 100 years. It has a very special culture, very special history. Contrary to popular belief, I wasn't around then. But I'll tell you, let's talk about our history, our recent history. When I took office, all of us were still wearing masks. These were some very challenging times. The fact is, people were living in tents. They were forced to live in tents all over the city. I lost over 300 police officers when I took office. A demoralized police staff, 100 more waiting to retire. Every year since I've been in mayor, I've had $100 to $200 million deficit. This is a very tough job. But I signed up for it, and I hired great staff, some of whom are here, and we reduced encampments by 80%, but more importantly, year after year, we shelter people, over 2,000 per year. We tripled our investments in treatment services, which led to more than a 20% reduction in overdoses. People are dying out there, and we did something about it. We are now receiving over 4,000 police applications a day, 10 a day. This year, I'll end up with a net increase of 150 officers, but most importantly, we've created the care department, which is an unarmed response. We've created that from scratch. That is where modern policing will go. I hired a woman, Amy Barr, to be the chief of that department. We will increase that department, and that again is where modern policing will go. An empathetic approach, the one that tracks people where they are, to meet them where they are. Now, I have to tell you something. This is why I need a second term. You should not have to have $200,000 a year income to live in this Seattle. My mom and dad were here. I was born here. They cannot live in this city. What I want you to do is realize that we have put $1 billion in affordable housing. Done. Are you sure that had to? I timed this and I was only on the. To be continued.
I'm just going to assume there's a pause with me. My name is Katie Wilson, and I run for Seattle Mayor. It's great to be with all of you here tonight. I moved to Seattle with my husband over 20 years ago, and now we're raising our daughter here. I'm running for mayor because I love this city, and we need to do better. I've watched Seattle transform and grow, and a lot of those changes have been good. But Seattle has also become a place that is so hard to afford. Housing, childcare, groceries, everything is too expensive. I spent the last 14 years as a coalition builder and a community organizer, leading campaigns to win transformative policies that benefit people across our region every single day. Better public transit, higher minimum wages, stronger protections for renters, and progressive revenue to fund the vital public services that we all depend on. I'm running for mayor because we need a city government that is responsive and effective, and right now we are failing. We simply cannot have another 4 years where every single year we have more people sleeping unsheltered on our streets. We cannot have another 4 years where instead of creating realistic pathways to stability, housing and shelter with treatment and services, we have a system of dead ends that leave everyone demoralized and frustrated. Another 4 years of poor leadership decisions that slow down progress in our police department and on our streets. We need real progress on homelessness and on public safety. At the same time, we also desperately need a shared positive vision of what our city can be. Seattle is a great city, and it can be a place where you don't need a six-figure income to feel at home. We can have great welcoming public spaces. We can have thriving business districts where you want to go and socialize and spend time. We can have all these things, but it requires vision, leadership, and collaboration. I'm so glad to be with all of you here today. I look forward to working with you, hopefully as your next mayor, to build and realize a shared vision for your neighborhoods, and I would be honored to earn your support.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very short. I apologize. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexis Rinck. I'm a renter and someone who takes the bus to go to work every day. I went from waiting tables next to the Space Needle to working on policy at the UW Tower to now serving you on Seattle City Council, fighting for a city that works for all of us and not just the ultra-wealthy few. In my work across communities, I've gained a reputation for bringing people together around solutions and making things happen. After getting my master's degree at the UW, I worked across 39 cities and with over 100 different organizations on housing and health of our communities. And since joining council, put forward legislation to build more affordable housing and make it easier to build more affordable housing. I've secured more funding for legal defense for our immigrant neighbors so we can fight back against Trump's cruel deportation agenda. And I partnered, thank you. And I partnered with our mayor to put forward the Seattle Shield Initiative, an initiative that's now before voters that would lower taxes for 90% of our businesses, giving them, the small businesses, the relief they need right now while asking our top 10% largest businesses to chip in more so we can fund food banks, housing,
gender-based violence services, and more so we can combat these federal cuts. And in times of national strife, Seattle must stand as a beacon of hope and resilience. We know this. And that's why I'm proud to be leading our city's fight by standing up a dedicated committee on federal administration and policy changes so we can track in real time what these federal policies will mean for our city. But I was brought to this work in the first place because of my upbringing. I'm proudly raised by my grandparents. I was born to teenagers who had been caught in cycles of substance use disorder, homelessness, and gang violence. But I'm here today because of good public schools with teachers who saw me and intervened. The Boys and Girls Club, the library, my community center. I stand here today as a living testament to when we invest in working families and young people, regardless of their beginnings, we can change generations. And that's what I'm fighting for every day on City Council. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rachael Savage. I'm running for Seattle City Council, position 8. This is an all-city position, so everyone can vote for me in the whole city of Seattle. I am a business owner on Capitol Hill. I've had a street-level retail business since 1998, and I have suffered the effects of the policy in this city when it comes to drug addiction, dismantling law enforcement, and the severe mental illness epidemic we have in our streets. Just tonight, when I was coming up Aurora, I actually saw everything that I believe is wrong in our city. I saw crime. I saw employees that were afraid. I was picking up a notebook at the Office Depot, and it said, there was a sign on the door that said, no hoods and no masks. And I asked the young girl that was working at the counter, how safe do you feel? How's it going? And at first she didn't really want to tell me, but I said, I'm running for city council. You can be honest with me. And she said, I'm scared. It's difficult. We keep everything valuable in the back. Our citizens should not have to live like this. So my goal and what I will fight for on city council is to restore and rebuild our law enforcement system. I will also fight for, guess what? Arresting criminals for crime. Because you know what happens? The rest of us suffer when criminals are treated like victims and victims are ignored. We can support everyone in our city. So what happens after a criminal gets arrested for public drug use? We can direct them to jail or long-term residential treatment. So my plan includes treatment for the severely addicted, long-term residential treatment for the mentally ill. And with those two things, our city can begin to rebuild our economy, our business, our free enterprise, our opportunity for all. Thank you.
I'm Deanna Foster, and I'll be introducing myself to you all a little bit later. Oh, Cal. Oh, you're here. Okay, Rachael. Okay. My opponent in this race is going to be arriving a little bit later. I thought we were going to do our intros at the same time. So, hello, everyone. My name is Deanna Foster, and I'm running for Seattle City Council position 9, the other citywide seat. And I'm so excited to introduce myself to you. I am a mom. I am a former nonprofit executive. I've worked in City Hall as a policy advisor, and I decided I wanted to run for City Council because I love this city so deeply, and I want it to be a place where I can continue to raise my family, my 12-year-old son, and make sure that he can stay here, grow, and thrive. As I look around our city, I think about the affordability crisis that is impacting so many of our neighbors. I myself was able to purchase my home because I got down payment assistance. So I understand what good government programs can do and how they can fight back against unaffordability and displacement. I grew up in Virginia. I was raised by my mom, who was a single parent. She worked in the military. She retired, became a teacher, and still struggled to make ends meet. I got my first job when I was 16 years old on my 16th birthday, and I started paying bills in my house when I was in high school. And I understand that that should not be the experience that kids are having. That's not how we set up our kids to thrive. I have worked on my career to make sure that we are delivering for economic justice, for housing, for social inequality. Most recently, I was executive director of Washington Progress Alliance, a statewide organization where we fought time and time again to pass and protect a statewide capital gains tax that directs millions of dollars into childcare, early education, and schools, all while asking some of the wealthiest among us to just simply pay their fair share in our system. I'm running for city council because I want to deliver on housing affordability. I want to make sure that this is a safe city. I have a master's in social work. I actually have taught and going back to teach as a lecturer at the University of Washington. And I think it's really important that we are investing in our next generation. And that's what I'm going to work to do on city council. I'd be honored to earn your support tonight. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, darn, I guess I could have stated that my previous engagement a little bit longer and then missed this opportunity to fumble with my words. Hello, everybody. I'm Sarah Nelson, who's proudly Kathy tonight. I am a 35-year Seattle resident, a lifelong Democrat, a wife, mother, and small business owner, and I ran 4 years ago because I saw a city in need of recovery. I don't mean to just think it back to Seattle about 4 years ago. A lot of things were going on. The many numbers of our officers were leaving because of decisions by the previous council. We had skyrocketing overdoses and crime. People were getting priced out of their city, and I believed that the perspective of a small business owner could do some good on council, someone who knows that your cost should not exceed your revenue, and also someone who values the innovation and jobs and tax revenue, frankly, that small businesses provide. So I was elected, and immediately I thought I became economic development chair, went around to talk to small businesses. Turns out the thing that was most important to them was public safety. And so we have begun to restaff the Seattle Police Department, and we're starting to see the numbers of crimes dropping. But to me, public safety is not simply about hiring more officers. It's about getting at the activity that drives the crime in the first place. And I will always say that to me is addiction. As someone who is in recovery myself, I see addiction as driving our public safety and chronic homelessness problems. And that is something that we have got to step up and focus on to a much greater degree, because that is how we help the people that we see on our streets, and also how we move forward on so many of the other issues that we're dealing with. So I will simply say that I am running again because it's true that Seattle's political. Okay.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Seattle's political climate has changed since what's going on the other coast, but our job is the same. We've got to do our job as local government and deliver basic services and results for you.
I'm going to start with a question for King County Executive, and you each have 90 seconds to answer this. It's not easy. It's your time. All right. Seattle Times just ran an article on the King County audit that was really pretty bad. How will your plans differ from the previous administration? I'm going to go first.
Thank you so much. We had a briefing in my committee on an audit of our Department of Community and Human Services. This is the department, and this is the funding that is meant to do the prevention work that so many of the candidates here talked about. It's meant to provide services and prevention work in order so that people don't go to jail, so they don't go to hospitals. And what we found was a department with $1 billion in grants per year was not providing basic financial oversight. Money going out the door, we don't know where it's gone. We don't know how much has been wasted. We don't know if there has been fraud. And so what we need to do is lean in and fix that. We need to have an internal audit function, and we need to get on it now. The report we had said, well, we'll finish with implementing these recommendations by the end of 2026. No, we need to get on this now. We need to make sure we understand the full scope of the problem. We need to start implementing basic financial controls immediately. This is a basic function of government, and we know how to do it. And we have the people to do it. We chose not to because we were trying to do a good thing. Remember during COVID when we were pushing money out the door as fast as we could, we were doing that to help people. This is the same problem, but we need to balance both. We need to get money into the hands of the community and serving the people that we represent. And we need to be able to make sure we know that it's going for the good we intended to go for and not for anything else.
Absolutely, the findings in that audit were unacceptable. We need much stronger financial controls. The way that I would differ from the prior administration is that, like my colleague just said, we need a proactive, automatic audit system. I would hire a chief operating officer who is tasked with auditing every single department proactively. That audit happened because one of our colleagues on the council requested it. We should not have a setup where somebody has to ask for an audit. There need to be internal audits automatically so that we know when issues like this are happening. And by the way, the grant programs at DCHS grew substantially in a matter of years, and we did not increase the administrative capacity at the same time to make sure that there were people who were doing site visits, who were reviewing the contracts, who were keeping a close watchful eye. And so making sure that in addition to increased grant capacity, we're increasing administrative capacity as well so that there are people proactively doing this work. I just released my King County Delivers plan, which is available on my website if anybody wants to go to electgirmay.com/priorities. It is a plan that is exclusively dedicated to government accountability, efficiency, and transparency. And there are many things listed in there that are not happening right now, like quarterly reports. Every public company, for example, is required to do quarterly reports. Progress, how much we've achieved our goals. King County doesn't do that right now. We need to start doing that.
Next question for county execs. I'll start with mine this time. In 2022, King County provided 244 beds for 300,000 residents with serious mental illnesses. Please talk about your priorities in addressing mental health as it ultimately impacts life safety in commercial neighborhoods and general well-being of the county.
Very quickly, just to let you all know, 10 years ago, King County did a study called Familiar Faces, which studied the people that we call repeat offenders, people who've gone in jail 4 times or more in the span of 2 years. Out of that population, it was something like 2,500 to 3,000 people. 95% of that population had overlapping substance use and mental health disorders. 95%. So what we're calling a repeat offender crisis is actually a behavioral health crisis. So we can no longer just release people back into the streets without the ongoing care that they need to make a full recovery. We have diversion programs like LEAD that need to be scaled up. We have programs for people who are held in custody called Vital, and that needs to be scaled up. And always the biggest barrier to providing this type of care for people is not enough shelters and permanent supportive housing. Those things always exceed the demand by 2x or more. And so we need to scale those programs up. We need to have more permanent supportive housing. We need to have more addiction services. And at the end of the day, we cannot just let people go without a coordinated system of care for people. There are also a lot of great nonprofits out there that are doing great work for people who are experiencing these issues, who need culturally competent care, because out of that population, disproportional number of them are African American and Native American. And so we need strong partnerships with organizations that can provide culturally competent care, because we need to treat every individual like a whole human being, not just somebody to be thrown away.
Everyone knows that a lot of what we see on the streets is a product of mental health challenges and behavioral health challenges, addiction. People are suffering and we need to do more about it. You all voters are very generous with King County, and we have come out with proposals, crisis care centers. We're building 5 crisis care centers where people can be taken off the streets, not to jail, not to Harborview, to a place where they can get care. But you know what? We haven't opened the door to a single one of them yet in the 2 years since you voted for this. Why? Because we need to push harder to deliver results for the things we've already promised. And this is where I come in. I have done this in my district. I have opened homeless shelters, permanent supportive housing, many affordable homes, housing plus, roofs over heads, plus treatment, plus services to help people stabilize. We know how to do it. We're just not getting it off the ground. Harborview, our Trauma One Center, and one of the places where most people with really serious mental health issues are taken. You voted 5 years ago to expand a behavioral health facility. We haven't turned a single spade of dirt. We need to get the resources that we have to the people in need. It's a competence issue. It's a delivery issue. I want to be county executive because I want to deliver on the things we should already be providing that will make a huge difference for people, and we deserve to see those results.
What will you do to improve the youth justice system and to improve juvenile detention conditions in the youth jail facility?
Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked me this question. I should confess at this point that as part of my background, I have run a large department in King County. I'm the only candidate in the race who has executive experience running a large department and a large budget, and that was the Department of Adult and Juvenile Detention. And when I ran that department, we ran a reform effort. Just like the Seattle had the Department of Justice come and say, you need to change how you're doing things, and they got out from under it. Congratulations. This week. We had the Department of Justice come and say, you need to change things. And that was my job. And we did. We reformed how we held people. We reformed mental health. We provided better care. We reduced uses of force. We did all of this under my watch and on my and with my work. We know how to fix juvenile detention. We have much fewer kids than we ever had before. Many fewer kids. We're way down from the peak of population of 200 years ago. Now we have about 40 kids a day. And that's because we have really good diversion programs that don't put youth in jail who don't need to be there in the first place, because we know that that is a cycle, that people spiral downwards and people learn how to be criminals when they're in detention. So diversion, good staffing, good training. We've been trying to build back staffing from the COVID era when people left us in droves. And we need to make sure that we keep staffing up and that we keep programs in the jails, because that's how you get kids. When you have them, you give them education, you connect them to services and jobs and hope, and that is how you stop that revolving door.
I grew up in places like Rainier Vista, New Holly, Skyway, public housing projects. I cannot tell you how many young people that I grew up around that I've seen die because of gun violence, end up in jail, end up on the streets, and we walk by them living on the streets. At every single checkpoint in that young person's life, I see an opportunity for an intervention that did not happen. Better education, better stable housing, better mental health care, and so much more. That's our number one priority, investing in the future of our young people before they get into our criminal justice system. Then when you get down into the criminal justice system, we absolutely do need a secure building for people who have been charged with serious crimes, murders, things like that. And at the same time, we have a competing public interest, because we do not want to go downstairs in our youth jail and just see a baby version of an adult jail where young people come out of their cells and so they tell me they're feeling dizzy and disoriented and unable to manage their emotions coming out of that kind of confinement. That is also unacceptable. And I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. We can create a secure building that is also more therapeutic, more educational, and more integrated with community-based services so that people don't feel like they've been plucked away and removed from their community. We need to absolutely integrate with the communities that are most impacted and make sure people have the education, therapeutic services, and behavioral health services that they need to get out of that environment and make better decisions in the future.
What are your plans to support and grow affordable housing throughout King County?
Thank you so much. This is the top priority for all of us. For one, we need to invest more public dollars to subsidize the cost of housing. We know that in our region, we've been doing a pretty good job of building market rate housing. We still need to build more, of course, but it's that deeply affordable 0 to 30% area median income where we are really lagging, and we see the impacts of it out in our streets. And so investing our public dollars in that at that level and beyond is really important. That requires progressive taxation, and we have to make sure that we continue to advocate at the state level to give King County better tools. We cannot continue funding affordable housing by raising regressive taxes. There is a limit to that. And so continuing our advocacy efforts is really important. Number two, we need better regional coordination. We have to go do a campaign with our suburban neighbors and make sure that they feel like they are involved in this solution. They feel like they have a stake in this, and that there is trust building that is done so that they feel like we can truly build the housing that we need in every corner of this region. Number three, we need to make sure that we're streamlining our permitting and our regulations and all the things that are making it so much harder to build. I know there is the big abundance agenda that is out there right now, and I absolutely subscribe to it. The more that we can thoughtfully find ways to reduce the permitting timeline so that developers are able to build the housing that we need in our urban areas, especially around transit. So we have lots of good transit-oriented development. That is the top priority as well.
If elected county executive, I'm going to make housing my top priority. When I first started in these regional roles at Sound Transit, at Puget Sound Regional Council, even at King County, what I heard a lot was we don't really do housing. That's a local thing. We don't do housing at Sound Transit. We build light rail. We don't do housing at the regional council. I don't know how that's the answer. And the answer is we all have to care about housing. We need to make sure that people are able to stay in their homes and be able to afford to stay in their homes, that young people can afford to live in the communities that we have benefited from. My 19-year-old needs to be able to live in this county if they choose to do so when they're ready to go out. And we need to be able to make sure that people on the streets and very low income folks have a place that they can afford to live. Everyone belongs in our community. The approach that we've been using is something that I have pioneered over the last several years. I'm glad to hear my colleagues say we need to coordinate with the cities because he may not know, but that's what I've been doing. We have a committee and we have a task force working with all the cities, all 39 of them, and our colleagues, including our colleagues here in the city of Seattle, where we are working on supply strategies, funding for subsidy strategies. We are doing this together and we need to care about results. What you need to see is that we're driving results. We're starting to see a lot more housing. There's a problem with subsidy. Because we've subsidized so many units, we actually now see market rate housing costs less than affordable housing, leaving affordable housing vacant. We need to switch our strategies and be smart. And finally, what we don't need is gimmicks. I'm surprised my colleague has not mentioned his big proposal was to borrow $1 billion without any plan to pay it back, to build like 5 or 6 or 8,000 homes, which would never meet the need, which is over 200,000 homes.
Seattle City Attorney, and I'm going to have you start. What is your stance on the current non-historical state of sex work and illegal drug trade on Aurora? Why do you think Shoreline has had more success in limiting this activity? And how high of a priority would it be for you?
Well, this is a great question for me because I was the one to introduce our SOAP, Stay Out of Area Prostitution law, as well as our Stay Out of Drug Area law. And also I introduced our underlying drug use and possession law at the city of Seattle. So it's important to understand the legislative intent of all of those things. The underlying drug use and possession law has an intent for treatment because all of us, I hear, are focused on we want to get people into treatment. We're looking to get people connected to a better trajectory for their life because we care about our neighbors. This is Seattle, and that's what Seattle is about. But we also need to be protecting public spaces. And that is where we're talking about the SOTA laws. They are to help protect public spaces, small businesses who then are the front lines, the workers that we hear about that are having to contend with things and harassment associated with drug activity. And then when we move over to the SOAP laws, we are talking about the trafficking, particularly of women and girls. Again, I'm a mother of a son and a daughter. I live in the North End. I have to talk about it. I have to educate my kids. I hear about it from other parents. This is not a topic that we expect to have to talk about with our children, but we do because we're known across the country. We're on the circuit for trafficking. So it is not something to shy away from. The SOAP law is now is passed 8-1, same SOTA law. That is what our city is moving forward on. It is to focus on these issues where we can intervene and say these things are important to us. We no longer want you to feel invisible. People who are trafficked, we will come for you. We want to see that happen.
I think what's important, we talk about soap and soda, is the perspective of actually being the candidate that's worked in law enforcement, worked for public safety, and knows the perspective of what works. You know, I, at the United States Attorney's Office, worked on folks that were trafficking people against their will, you know, and what doesn't work is going after folks that are dealing with substance use, folks that are dealing with being unhoused. Those are ineffective policies. And when we even look at what's been implemented since soap and soda have been in place, there's only been two. There's only been 2 soda orders that have been charged in the city attorney's office. So it's not something that has actually been used. So it's something that's ineffective. It was used in the past. It didn't work. It didn't solve what's going on. What does work is working with our state and assistant United States attorneys on going after the traffickers that are doing that against people's will, and focusing on the drug traffickers work that I've done at a high level. That's important. And that's how we serve our community and help those that are in need, and not target and prosecute folks that are actually in need of treatment and services.
Next question, and we'll start. Erika, Seattle Community Court Program was shut down in 2023. What do each of you propose to do now with this program and why?
I think completely shutting it down without a clear alternative was a failure. And it's a failure because we look at the data of what's been happening currently in the Seattle Municipal Court when it comes to the more serious cases that the city attorney's office deals with, which is DUIs and domestic violence cases, because it is a misdemeanor court, there's no felonies. And what we've seen is domestic violence cases on average for 2024 took 50 days to file and charge. That's twice as long as they used to before the current leadership that's in office now. And that's unacceptable. What needs to be done is a new reimagined community court. During this campaign, I've gone across our state and looked at other community court models that are working. Places like Auburn, Tacoma, and Redmond, and Bellevue just opened one up as well. And they're having a low recidivism rate. And they're actually providing services to folks that need it, and the right response to get people into treatment, the right response to get folks into housing. And having that mechanism in place reduces recidivism, and that's the goal. And that is what we should be striving for. You know, I know that a couple days before filing week, there was a drug diversion court that was propped up under the current leadership of the city attorney's office, and that's not enough. We need to do more that are also addressing folks that are dealing with being unhoused, and that is something that I'm going to implement as the next city attorney. Thank you.
Let's be clear about the last question. Soda and soap is the law of the city. It was passed and put into law by our city council 8-1. So it is the law. So we're hearing one person who is saying that she thinks better than our council who put our law into place. I don't think that one person is supposed to look away from the law. We are here to enforce the law. There's a thing called prosecutorial discretion, which is to look at a case and decide, is this appropriate for diversion, an alternative to mainstream prosecution? Or is this someone that we've seen 30, 40 referrals from police, and that is someone that is more appropriate for mainstream prosecution? So that is really important for you to understand. Secondarily, community court, when I looked at the data, because it was an auto route into community court, and what was showing, it was doubling recidivism. It was a waste of our dollars to be putting people through that, because people that were going through that had 40 referrals. So instead, I focused on what I call the high utilizer initiative, focus on the few people, 118 people responsible for over 2,400 referrals, 118 people. We should not be offering those people diversion. They should be hearing that we need to hold them accountable because our laws have to matter. They all have to matter. So what I did instead was double the diversion. What is before there's any charging, I have set up I doubled the programs for diversion, so there's not charges. And that recidivism rate is low. It shows that it's working. So it actually saved us money because we don't have a court system where we're going through this. I'm not in charge of housing, but I can build out reentry at misdemeanor level and post-diversion. That's what I'm doing, and that's where we're moving the needle on, because I'm not in charge of housing. That's not my space. And when it comes to trafficking, that's at the felony level. We're talking about prostitution, and so we're talking about getting buyers off the street so we can make women and girls safer. Thank you.
How would you improve initiatives for public safety on light rail?
Well, one of the main things I think for me, I will just highlight something that I did a couple of days ago, which is to sue the gun manufacturer Glock, because what is a prevalent issue? What is a prevalent issue is a plastic piece the size of a dime that is called a switch that can easily convert a semi-automatic handgun to a fully automatic handgun. And if you think that this is something that we should be taking lightly, I need to give you a little bit of information about what those things do. They can shoot 30 rounds in 2 seconds, 1,200 rounds in 1 minute. Nobody needs to have a weapon that's capable like that. And what's happening is they're becoming popular, particularly among teenagers, because they can be 3D printed and they can be put easily within minutes. I sued Kia and Hyundai for the same very reason. With the USB technology, they can easily steal our cars. I'm talking about what can I do in the space that I'm in control of. Creative public safety strategies. That's not just simply hiring more officers. What else can we do besides that? I am the one with those creative strategies. I am the one who brought the public safety legislation that the city council passed. And I'm the one who's bringing civil litigation in creative ways. That's the space that I'm supposed to be working in. Graffiti, domestic violence, prostitution, trafficking people that are coming in. We added additional piece on that. I'm talking about gun safety because where it goes in for transportation, we have to make sure we're helping to make every place safe.
So the question was on safety on transit, and this is something that hits close to home because my dad is a bus driver. And drivers and riders should all be feeling safe when they ride transit. And we need to do more on that. And I also, I look to my experience in cases I've worked on that involved assaults on buses and work I've actually done as a prosecutor around that. And that's important when you're leading an office. That's important when you're leading an office on making decisions on the right cases to charging and knowing how to do that. And I'm also proud, since we're talking about guns, to be the sole candidate endorsed by the Alliance for Gun Responsibility because they trust my work. They know and see me in community, and that's so important in a role like this. So thank you, everyone.
Last week, our University of Washington UW Hospital built 150 behavioral health beds. Due to lack of public defenders, we're told that they're not full because we can't get them in the pipeline. What do we do about that? You want to start?
We need to hire more public defenders. I think it's simple as that. That's important. All the beds you mentioned, those need to be filled. That doesn't make any sense that we're not utilizing that. So we need to be pouring more funding in that to hire more public defenders. I'm looking at my husband, who's in the audience. He was a public defender for nearly a decade and seeing the hard work of having way too many cases. And so it's good that there's been a fix at our Supreme Court to reduce that. But with that, we need to be solutions oriented and making sure we are investing in being able to have the capacity to have more public defenders. Thank you.
For me, this is a very significant issue, and it's one that I meet with community on regularly because the area of incompetency is a very complicated area. And what happens is that our state legislature deprioritized what is called restoration for somebody who is incompetent back in 2019. So it makes it actually difficult for somebody to be restored to competency to participate in their defense. So that can happen at the felony level much easier, but at the misdemeanor level, what often is happening is if somebody is found incompetent, we don't have anywhere where they go to. That is why this is so important, because I hear from firefighters, from community members, from small business owners, from people who care and don't want to see that we just leave people. This is what I have to talk about with my kids. We should not be walking by people and leaving it that we just say we don't know what to do. It's not your job. And a lot of that question is not the role of this position. Let's be clear. But what I can do is help educate the people about what we can do. And in the area of incompetency, when people hover up, become incompetent and incompetent because we've seen them exposed to substances for years. And then I see them never again regaining competency because we've left them. I think the intervention can often be that we get them into the criminal justice system, build out the reentry. That's why the drug prosecution alternative is available. Offers are being made. People are taking it. We're getting people directly into treatment with housing provided. That is happening. And that is one way we can address that. But the out of custody treatment is a critical piece. And I hope that you understand that. If you have questions on it, please come and talk with me.
This is for the mayors. What are your thoughts on the current One Seattle plan that calls for a major upzone around Harrell Lake? Do you like it as written or would you change it?
Let's be very clear. A plan is a plan. And what we have to do is listen to the community. We know housing is the housing crisis, right? So I have to develop a 20-year plan for growth. We are the 4th fastest growing city in the country. That is a fact. So around Harrell Lake, this is what concerns me. Water quality. The water used to be cold. I'm worried about drip off from the houses on the west side of the Harrell Lake. So the council is listening as well. It is a malleable document, but I had to make sure under our growth plan that we were accommodating 330,000 units. I need that level of productivity because I'm driving costs down in every way I can to allow you to live in the city. I go to the water rates, for example. I know exactly what the water rates are. It's like 13.5 cents per CCF. That's 100 cubic feet. Now, why would I say that? Because I even look at the power rates. I'm fighting for a livable city for Harrell Lake as well. So We're listening to you. We know that you have concerns about the drip off. There are other areas of town too, if they're listening. Madrona, I hear you. Mount Baker, I hear you. We put a stake in the ground. It's a plan. But the city council's job is to listen to feedback as we did and come up with a great plan. So we hear you. Again, I'm concerned about Holler Lake, Bitter Lake, Green Lake, all the water qualities as well in our city. So that's how we go about it in a very comprehensive way. And you have our ear in terms of what your needs are, Holler Lake.
So this is a great question. And, we have a housing crisis. Housing is unaffordable for so many people, for renters, for homeowners. And there are many reasons for this, but one is that we have not built housing to keep up with the growth of our city and our region. And that is why it is so important that with our comprehensive plan, we are planning for building much more housing all around the city and in neighborhoods around the city. I would go further than the comprehensive plan proposal that was put forward by our current mayor in making sure that there are more neighborhoods that are absorbing some of that density. Initial plans for the comprehensive plan included more neighborhood centers, and many of those were struck off by the mayor's office, including his own neighborhood, Seward Park. So I do believe that we are going to need to build more housing in neighborhoods throughout the city. I also believe that we can do that smartly, and we can do that in cooperation with neighborhoods, so that that density is added in ways that improve livability. I believe that we can do better at preserving mature trees and at making sure that we have all of the infrastructure that is needed to support that housing. Thank you.
Right now, everybody's gonna have to pay attention because the next questions are for both the mayor candidates and the city council candidates. So, and I'm gonna start at the other end of the table this time. Ready? Do you support the current tree protection ordinance, which allows for clear cutting of lots under development? What is your position on Councilmember Rivera's Amendment 93 that would make changes to protect mature trees that are not in the way of development?
So I believe that we just come off talking about the comprehensive plan. It is incredibly important that we are building for the city that we need to have today and into the future. And right now, that means that we need to make sure that we are balancing both development and building more housing and also ensuring that we have a beautiful and livable city. Having said that, I think that, oh, I'm so sorry. Is that better? Okay. Thank you. Having said that, I think that what's important is that we are not that we are making sure that we are not blocking development from happening, because it's really important and it's a critical part of bringing down our housing costs. So I think there are some strategies that we can look at where we can look at options to improve flexibility for developers, but we should not be going backwards or putting up restrictions that are so strong or so intense that it's going to actually slow down the ability to deliver on housing, because that is critical for delivering on affordability.
Could you ask the question again, please? Yeah. Do you support the current tree protection ordinance, which allows for the clear cutting of lots under development? What is your position on Amendment 93 that would make changes to protect mature trees that are not in the way of development?
I did vote for the current tree ordinance, and the way that it was rolled out was very unfortunate because the Urban Forestry Commission was not able to comment on it, and it was very, I believe, flawed in several ways in the end. However, so I just want to put it on the table. You asked me if I support it. I happen to vote for it, but I'm recognizing that it has a great deal of problems, and the number of trees that it purports to save is overcounted when it comes to how people are actually turning in their permits. It's a little bit complicated. I do support Councilmember Rivera's amendments, because what we have got to do, because one of them in particular, I can't remember if it's 93 or the other one, but we have got to incentivize smart design of housing. And that is exactly what we do. We have we have rules that thank you. So one of the amendments basically says, okay, figure out how to build a house and keep a tree, and therefore you can do it. And it incentivizes that kind of thinking. We should have been doing that all along, and I am proud to be able to support that going forward. That is precisely the way that we get past this growth versus tree mindset. We can't have both, but it takes the city allowing for that flexibility to be able to implement it.
I believe we must have both growth. I'm about building density in our city so we can have housing for everyone and protecting the trees. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but what I am an expert on and what I'm very concerned about in our city is the type of housing we're building. My opponent thinks that permanent supportive housing that allows drug addicts to use drugs and die in our city housing, has miraculous powers, that it cures crime, that it cures drug addiction, that it cures mental illness. We cannot have our density and our building to include more permanent supportive housing. Housing First has been a colossal failure. It's led to crime and dereliction in our neighborhoods. It's crushed businesses. These projects that have the permanent supportive housing, the drug addict apartments for drug addicts for free, destroy neighborhoods. I'm living in one of them. That's right. I'm living in one of them on Capitol Hill. They're like a dirty bomb. You put it in the neighborhood, and without proper law enforcement, every neighborhood, if you don't have one in your neighborhood, my opponent, Alexis Rinck, is going to make sure that one comes to a neighborhood near you. And if you want to see how this works out, go to the Chinatown International District and see how it's working out for them. Go to Belltown. Go to Capitol Hill. It's a nightmare. And I will not let it happen on the city council if I'm elected. Thank you.
There's a question about trees, Rachel. Because we need to make sure that we have a clear focus on getting to 30% tree canopy across this city. That needs to be priority for the sake of climate resilience. We have a number of urban heat islands in this city that cause real suffering, and we know what these heat events are like. They are deeply uncomfortable, and because our region has not been that hot in most of our history of my life, we don't have the infrastructure in place for cooling to support and keep all of our neighbors cool during these really severe heat weather events, so they're dangerous. So building out and ensuring and investing in actually growing our tree canopy should be a priority. Looking at expanding city arborists and planting more in spaces that we can needs to be a priority, while also making sure that we engage with our Urban Forestry Commission, who are our local experts who understand how we can make sure we keep our urban forestry alive, healthy, and well. And I think it's important to note as well that we know that when we're talking about broader climate resilience and climate justice, 60% of our emissions in the city come from transportation. When we have folks who are forced out of the city and still have to commute back in, that's contributing to our emissions in this city. So one of the best things that we can do to also prevent trees outside of the city from being cut down is building more housing here to keep people close, nearby, their community members, their elders, their grandparents, nearby their jobs. And that's one way that we can make sure we keep more trees in the ground. Thank you.
So I live on Capitol Hill, up kind of on top of the hill, and there is beautiful old tree canopy up there, and I'm a great appreciator of that. And so, yeah, I believe that, like Alexis said, we need to work hard toward that goal of 30% tree canopy, and we are losing trees at an alarming rate. And that does mean that, especially in neighborhoods that already have heat islands that do not have enough green cover, we need to put a lot more energy into caring for and also planting and also caring for those trees so that they can reach maturity, right? We can say that we planted how many over 1,000 trees, but if we're not caring for them, then they're not going to reach maturity. In terms of the comprehensive plan and our approach to trees there, I think we can do better. And, you know, when we're looking at our new neighborhood residential zoning, I think that we can do better at improving flexibility, both through the requirements and incentives for as developers are building on a lot, trying to encourage them to work around mature trees when that is possible, so that we can get both the housing and the trees, because we absolutely need both. Thank you.
Well, you got a first taste of what the city could be like when you don't set goals. Yeah, we can do better. We can do better. I can say that 5 times. The reason why we took the tree ordinance is because we proposed a comp plan for 330,000 units. She said we could do better, Holler Lake. Was that 380,000, 400,000? Because what we did is we looked at the old comp plan, which was 160,000, and we doubled it. We also said publicly that we're malleable, such that we will listen to communities to make sure that the environmental concerns are met. On trees, I used political capital on this. I didn't have to update the ordinance. An interim ordinance had been around for 15 years. And I said, if we're going to tackle housing issues, I want to protect the trees. I got the biggest tree hugger in the state that I'm married to right here. We wanted to do it right. So what we did is look what we did. For the first time, we expanded it from 22,000 regulations from 22,000 to 70,000 trees. We put that in the database to measure. We have a 3-for-1 replacement. We clamped down on removals. We limited tree removal on private property from 3 trees per year to 2 every 3 years. Okay, so we are measuring it. You know, I was a technology lawyer, so I use the data to measure how we're going to protect our tree canopy. And what I've said openly is we put it down, put the stake, and we'll continue to amend it. That was leadership. If you love trees as much, at least my wife does, you don't look at that interim, and every mayor passed on that, by the way, but not this mayor. That's leadership, and that's what you're going to get for 4 more years.
There have been improvements to policing and public safety in Seattle recently. Do you support these improvements, or would you go in a different direction?
Clearly support the improvements. Let me tell you what leadership is. I've been consistent on my stance with police. Now, I passed the bias-free policing law, which is racial profiling. I passed the race and social justice legislation. I passed the ban the box because my community were always asked, have you ever been arrested or charged with a crime? So I've been the leader in the social justice space all my life. But when it comes to police, I want everyone to feel safe. We have 2 granddaughters, and I said, I will not rest until my granddaughters can walk anywhere around any neighborhood. The fact is violent crimes are going down, homicides are going down, shots fired are going down. Why? Because we measure everything. I hired a superstar in Sean Barnes and our chief. Now I have to tell you, I went to every precinct on every shift, 4 a.m., 11 p.m., and I told our officers, if you don't have my vision, if you don't think George Floyd was murdered on March 20th, 2020, then you should not work for me. Okay, so the vision of modern policing is number 1. And I testified in court 2 days ago in front of the judge, and I said this, that as a leader, they have to know my expectation because I want everyone to be safe, but I want them to be culturally competent. And the care department that we created from scratch, again, that's modern policing right there, because these people are sick. We have our county representatives, our county leaders over here. They know I want a health approach to a public safety issue. Thank you very much.
So this is a great question, and we have a long way to go on public safety. What our mayor didn't say is that before he hired Sean Barnes, he hired Adrian Diaz, and he stood by him. And we had chaos and we had scandal in the police department when we should have been focusing on public safety. We lost high integrity career officers during that period. Morale went to rock bottom. We can do better. We've actually had excess homicides compared to if Seattle had followed national trends over the last 4 years. We need to continue hiring police. We also need to work hard to civilianize roles that our police do not need to be performing so that they can focus on policing. That means expanding our alternative response, which is much smaller than some other departments around the country have managed to create. That means civilianizing functions like responding to non-entry traffic incidents, taking down reports of property crime, again, so that our police can focus on policing. We also need to do better on accountability, and part of this is how we negotiate the police contract. We have not made meaningful progress on accountability. We still have a 2017 ordinance on accountability that mostly has not been implemented because of poor leadership. We can do better.
We need to be building a public safety system that has a quick response and the right response for given public safety scenarios.
in scaling and right-sizing our responder workforce from law enforcement, fire, behavioral health, alternative response responders is key to it. We also need to make sure that we are not just responding to crime, but preventing it from happening in the first place. And I know I've also done sometimes walking alongside and spending time with the North Precinct and being a 911 dispatch, but the prevention matter of this is also really important. And I was proud to work alongside our state legislators in Olympia to pass meaningful gun control legislation, such as permit to purchase, and spending time in Olympia lobbying to make sure we got that done. I'm proudly endorsed by the Alliance for Gun Responsibility because our office's focused time that we've spent on putting forward and fighting for meaningful legislation to get guns out of our communities, but also investing in important interventions for young people. And to that end, it's also important to note that we are safest when all of our community members are healthy and housed, which is why I'm fighting for investment in housing, human services, food, to make sure that we are all safe. Thank you.
I'm a pro-police candidate. I am proudly endorsed by the Seattle Police Guild. Our police department is one of the most accountable police departments in the country, and that's proven because the consent decree was just lifted. Our police officers need to have support in their doing their job. The first thing I'll do when I get on city council is to amend the public drug use law and allow the police to arrest for public drug use. I'm the only one up here that for arresting criminals. And guess who that protects? It not only will help get people into treatment and shelter and detox that they need, it's going to protect the rest of us. As I said, when I was coming up Aurora tonight, I saw multiple crimes. Somebody was smoking fentanyl right in front of the Walgreens. I saw barefoot people that were strung out and mentally ill. We need our police officers to be able to intervene, arrest, and then we will offer them jail or treatment. You know, I've worked with a lot of addicts in my life. I'm 35 years drug-free. I'm a recovered addict myself, and I've spent those 35 years helping addicts learn how to stop using drugs and get free and rebuild their lives. Guess what? Addicts don't get clean and abstinent because they see the light. I'm sorry to tell you this. It's when they feel the heat, and jail and treatment, long-term residential treatment is helpful for addicts. It helps them get clean and abstinent. And we need to support our law enforcement for giving them the ability to do that.
So I think it's incredibly important that we are making sure. Oh, sorry. Thank you. I think it's incredibly important that we continue to make progress on ensuring that we have a fully staffed Seattle Police Department. Last night I attended the North Precinct Advisory Council meeting, and I heard questions from neighbors about what's happening in their community. I heard questions about response times. I heard questions about making sure that we have enough detectives who can show up. And I think that is incredibly important and should continue to be a focus. Having said that, I think it is also important that even though we have been released from the consent decree, that we do not take our foot off the gas on making progress on accountability. Earlier this year, Rinck introduced several amendments that would have moved us forward towards accountability. That included providing a private right of action for people who have been on the other side of harm from SPD. That included further restricting the use of blast balls from SPD. Things that we can do to ensure that we have both adequate policing and safe communities at the same time. My opponent voted against both of those common sense amendments. There's more work to do. There is a clear plan that we can do to move forward. The other thing that I will add to that is it was a priority for me to go out and spend time with our care department, our third public safety department, and do a ride along. Currently, with the MOU that this council has approved and negotiated, there are 12 people serving the whole city and the care team. We need to make sure that we are expanding that. The care team is also, hamstrung because they also have to be co-deployed with SPD. We need to make sure that that care team can fully do their job by changing those requirements. All right.
Can you repeat the question? I just want to hey, Oh my gosh, yeah, it's been many people that have talked. I just want to make sure that the question is, do I agree with is that the direction of policing?
That's something to do with trees, I think.
There have been improvements to policing and public safety. Do you support these improvements or would you go a different direction?
I absolutely support these improvements because it's clearly our core responsibility. It's our charter responsibility as public officials, as council members to protect the health, the well-being and the safety of people of Seattle. That is in our charter. What's also in our charter is, I believe it is chapter 1, article 6, I could be wrong, that says there shall be adequate police presence in every district of the city, meaning Seattle. That is a requirement. So it is our responsibility to ensure that the Seattle Police Department is well enough staffed to protect the people of Seattle. Yes, there can be improvements. We've already spoken about accountability. Those accountability measures must be negotiated with the guild. Those are ongoing. It's not something that you can just snap your fingers and it happens, and that's a long process, but it's something that I care very deeply about, of course, accountability, and that is in progress. As for the expansion of the care department, yes, we need to do that, but it's what can the members of the care department do with or without an officer present is the big question that must be negotiated in the accountability negotiations. Anyway, the point is, we cannot, unless you have the luxury of not needing the police, unless you live in a place where you can drive from your garage downtown, perhaps to another garage, and never have to encounter Okay, my time is up. I should always look at your. Anyway, yes, I do support these changes.
Thank you. All right. Now we're gonna do a little lightning round here. One word answer. We're starting at this end of the table. The question is, are you politically to the right or left of your opponent?
I am sitting to his right.
Pretty similar.
Forward.
Right. I'm also with Girmay. We're going forward, but I am sitting to the left of City Attorney Ann Davison.
I don't really like the question.
I know.
I really don't. Not a fair question, but I would say to my left, and I could prove it with data and actual 1,600 pieces of legislation.
One word. I learned something new. Bruce Harrell's to my left. Okay.
I'm gonna say left, but also I think right now people care about results, not labels.
Okay. All right. One word.
My opponent's a Trump supporter. I think everyone up here is trying.
Proudly to the right.
Consent. I'm gonna comply and say left. We should switch seats.
Frankly, I'm not going to venture what her politics are because I haven't heard enough specifics about her positions on
All right.
issues to.
One word. Beyond. All right. The next lightning round, one word this time. Start down at the end. What's your favorite ice cream?
The one in my freezer, and right now it's mint chocolate chip.
No, I'm sugar free, baby.
Pistachio. Chocolate peanut butter.
Blackberry.
Salted caramel.
Peppermint.
Make some noise for strawberry cheesecake.
Change them into fish foods.
All right, now we're going to go to closing statements. Everybody has 90 seconds. We're going to start with Claudia.
Thanks so much for doing this tonight. It's been a privilege to be here with you. Although I don't live around here, King County is a very big county. I just spent a fair amount of time around here. And recently I took a ride in the evening on the E-line with some of our transit operators to see what they see from behind the wheel of a bus. And I saw an awful lot. And when I come through here, I see an awful lot. I see the challenges that you all live with every single day in this neighborhood. And so as county executive, I just want to say my commitment to you is that I will be, and King County will be, a strong partner with the city of Seattle to address the things that will make your lives better here. I have already proposed on public safety that we create emphasis patrols in King County. Right now, we're losing a lot of retail stores, partially because of theft. Who used to be able to buy anything off the shelves you ever wanted, whenever you wanted? We know retail theft is a problem and we should do something about it, and we can. I've proposed a transit task force that I've worked with the transit operators and the city of Seattle on to make sure that we are doing better around safety on our buses and on our trains. And the solutions on the buses and the trains will help outside the buses and the trains, because transit safety is public safety. It's the same thing. I've proposed that we reform KCRHA. We didn't talk about homelessness tonight, but we got to do a better job of working together regionally on homelessness. And I am done. I want to say thank you so much. I hope to earn your vote, and I'd love to talk to you again later on down the road. Thanks.
I'm generally a very hopeful person, and I don't like to peddle in doom and gloom, but we have some really, really big challenges up ahead. Whether it's our budget or our values, so many of the things that we care about are under threat right now. Metro, sound transit, homelessness funding, healthcare funding, roads, sewer systems, so much. And there is no magic wand solution to any of these things. And there is no individual person or even an individual level of government that's capable of solving the scale of the problems that are before us. The only thing that gives us a chance is collective action. The next King County executive is going to have to inspire collective action. And when we're seeing this position through that lens of somebody who's going to be able to convene the broadest coalition to solve the problems up ahead and push forward a common agenda, I believe I am the candidate to be able to do that. We have more endorsements from elected officials, more unions, more climate, the Washington Conservation Action, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, Planned Parenthood, Pro-Choice Washington. I am coming forward not just in my own abilities, but the ability to bring lots of people together to solve problems. That's been my track record, and I hope that you will be part of that coalition so that we can move forward and build a region of safety and opportunity for everyone. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you for spending your evening this way. It's a hot room and you chose to stay till the very end. So I do appreciate you listening. This is a very important job. It is one that has to exercise self-restraint to know what is the role. And I have focused on rebuilding the system, the public safety system. I spent my first year in office going to precincts, going to roll calls, going to ride-alongs, because our police officers need to know that when they do their work, that we hold them accountable to do, and they refer it over to a prosecutor, where 80% of our crime is misdemeanor crime, that there's somebody who's going to follow through. And then I will take that on and I will prosecute when it's appropriate and I will divert when it's appropriate. And that is what I've been doing. I doubled our diversion programs. I started the High Utilizing Initiative to focus on repeat offenders. We've shown both sides of that spectrum have reduced recidivism because it is about having both opportunities available. I'm the only candidate who has executive experience. I've been a lawyer for 20 years. I've led the basketball operations for the Seattle Supersonics. I've led the city's attorney's office, $46 million budget, over 200 employees. I know what I'm doing. I've come with vision and strategies that support public safety beyond just hiring more officers. We have to think beyond just hiring more officers. We need them. They need to know we hold them accountable because I depend on their work to get public safety moving forward. The improvements we've seen is under my leadership. We cannot go back to someone who only knows from the existence of the previous administration from the last 12 years. I appreciate your support. I'm endorsed by former governors Gregoire Locke, the Seattle Times, and proud to be endorsed by our first responders, Seattle firefighters, and police officers. Thank you.
I'm honored to be here because you all deserve better. Seattle deserves better. This role is really important. And you all deserve the best attorney with the best serious experience for this job. And I have that. When we talk about litigation experience, this office is leading a huge litigation department, both criminal and civil. That's the experience I bring. Doing over 20 jury trials, both criminal and civil, that is important in a role like this. It's important when you're having young attorneys look to you of what to do for strategy, look to you for what to do in the courtroom. That's the experience I bring. And being out on this campaign trail and hearing from you all, hearing from community of how there's not enough presence and not enough of the leadership being in community, hearing of what the needs are, hearing what the problems are, and instead doing political grandstanding on pet policies as opposed to listening to what community actually wants to see. So I'm running because I know we can do better on public safety, and I know we can do better on fighting back against the Trump administration with urgency, not when it's just politically convenient. So my name is Erika Evans, and I'm asking for your vote in November. Thank you all so much.
I think it's very important that you know some things about me. I wasn't born of privilege. That's very important. When I use the term executive order 9066, that may not mean a lot to you. That was a presidential order that put my mother in an internment camp. You should know that all through my life, up until high school, my mom and dad and my brother, we lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. So when I hear your pain about affordability, I've lived through it. That is why we put $1 billion in my administration. Right now, $343 million in affordable housing. That's why moving forward, when you look at these projects like Northgate Commons or Fort Lawton, you see how aggressive and bullish we are on housing. I have to ask you this. With Trump in office, you want me to fight for you. This man is a supremacist. He is evil. He destroys due process, and I'm very articulate on the 10th Amendment. I argued in court the other day. I'm very proud that my endorsers, Nick Brown and Governor Bob Ferguson, we are united. We will file lawsuits. We'll gather with community-based organizations. We know the law. I have to fight for you because everything about Seattle that allowed me, this little biracial boy from the Central District, to be mayor, everything about this city that I love is precious to me. Holler Lake, yes, we can do better. We get it. But we have to fight. And that's what you have in this mayor, and that's what you're going to have for the next 4 years.
So as you probably know, I did pretty well in the primary election. I received over 50% of the vote as a first-time candidate, running against a longtime incumbent with very little institutional support. And a lot of people who weren't paying close attention to this race were suddenly taking it very seriously. And many people who don't know me and have not watched my work over the years suddenly began asking, who is this person who looks like she might be our next mayor? So I want to just say a little more about myself and about my governing philosophy. I'm not a normal politician. I have not spent my career aspiring to hold elected office. So in that sense, I'm an outsider, but I am an outsider with an insider's knowledge of City Hall. I have been at the table when legislation was hashed out, when programs were designed, when policies were implemented. I've seen how City Hall works and too often how it fails to work for the people of this city. The Jumpstart payroll expense tax that I led on designing and passing in 2020 funded a lot of the affordable housing that our mayor talks about, and it has allowed him to balance the budget for the last 4 years. Being the mayor at core is about leadership, and it's about assembling a team. It's about assembling a team of people who have the highest competence and integrity, keeping them oriented and motivated around a common vision for our city's future. Assembling and leading teams to accomplish big things is exactly what I have spent my career doing. And that is the spirit that I intend to bring into the mayor's office next January. And I would be honored to have your support in getting there.
Thank you all for the time tonight. You know, today I received one of the biggest honors of my life, and it was being recognized by Real Change News as Changemaker of the Year. And you can see the change that my office has shown. You know, as a citywide representative, we often joke in my team, we like to be everywhere and do everything and do it all at once. You know, we've actually been to every single one of the proposed neighborhood centers in the comprehensive plan, walking around, talking to our neighbors to get a real feel of the kind of proposals we're talking about in the neighborhoods we want to build. I've walked from our northernmost border of the city all the way to the southernmost border of the city because I want to understand a real feel of our neighborhoods, the streets that feel safe, the sidewalks that are screwed up. When our immigrant neighbors down in federal court, when ICE was snatching folks right after their hearings were being dismissed, I was there accompanying our immigrant neighbors. I don't just walk the walk. I don't talk the talk, I walk the walk. And that's why we built the strongest coalition of support behind us. This is the campaign that Planned Parenthood trusts is going to protect reproductive health care access. This is the campaign that unions representing frontline workers, our bus drivers, our healthcare workers, they trust that we're going to fight for working families. And this is the campaign that has earned the endorsement of every single Democratic Party organization in the city. And now I'm asking for your support so we can fight together against the politics of fascism and build a Seattle that works for all of us. Thank you.
You know, I'm a walk away from the Democratic Party because crime and drug addiction and severe mental illness came to my doorstep at my business. I cannot hire employees. I'm in danger every single day I go to work. I see kids walk to school and have to pass drug addicts using drugs. Well, you know, I've heard a lot about Seattle's values. And when I drive down Aurora and live in my neighborhood in Capitol Hill, I don't think the values are allowing people to use drugs on the street without intervening and giving them help. I don't think Seattle's values are letting mentally ill people squalor in the streets and live like animals. I don't think Seattle's values are to not support our first responders. Good luck, dude. Good luck. So some of you all might not like to hear this, but there was just an executive order by the Trump administration on crime and disorder in our city. Guess who wants to pay for abstinence-based treatment? Guess who wants to pay for it? She wants to block it. The Trump administration wants to pay for abstinence-based housing, abstinence-based treatment, and long-term residential care for our mentally ill. So you might not like the Trump administration, but I think our values in Seattle are taking care of mentally ill. I think our values are taking care of our drug addicted and getting them into treatment. I think our values are building business opportunity and free enterprise, and I'd be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
She should be able to talk again.
Yeah. I'm sorry,
It's called the Heckler Speech Show, and I think, sir, you should be escorted out. You know, it's really interesting. Listen, I'm an American, and I can have a different opinion than you, and I can run for office if people can vote for me. And that's the beauty of this.
Who's getting out of hand? All right, sit down. We don't have the muscle. Let's move on. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. I apologize for an obnoxious audience member. Next person, please.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Right to your mouth.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for having us. This moment that we are in right now, our city faces a number of challenges. We are facing affordability challenges that are pushing our neighbors out of our city. We have folks who are living outside who need support to get housed. We are facing imminent threats from the Trump administration. Thank you. Thank you. We are facing imminent threats from the Trump administration, and it is incredibly important that we have leadership on city council that is ready to tackle all of those, and that is going to be clear and thoughtful about the plans that are going to do that. I talked about affordability. We talk about the need to build out our comprehensive plan, but let's be really clear. that tree ordinance that we're talking about, that can slow down, or excuse me, that amendment from Councilmember Rivera, that will slow down development. That will harm what we are trying to do to tackle our affordability crisis. Let's also be clear. I'm the only candidate in this race that is the sole endorsement of King County Prosecutor Lisa Mannion and the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, because they know I'm going to fight to make sure that our communities are safe and that I'm going to bring a balanced approach to do that. Let's also be clear. We are facing threats from the Trump administration, and when this council was voting on a supplemental budget that included hundreds of thousands of dollars for immigrant legal offense, my opponent did not come to work and vote on the budget. We need leaders who are going to show up and who are going to fight for our communities to take us into the next 4 years.
So it's clear that listening to all of us, Trump has changed the political dynamic in Seattle, right? And so I am not going to assume anybody's politics in this room because clearly there are diverse opinions, but I will say that what is necessary on the council right now is someone who is able to and has proven herself to be a fighter, who stands up and gets things done, who takes on tough issues and wins. And that is what I've done over and over again. I'll take the housing in the stadium district issue, for example. Ran legislation, was a little bit controversial, but I ended up winning to allow for workforce housing in the stadium district because we've got an affordability crisis on our hands right now, and my opponent opposed that. Anyway, we will have differences of opinion going forward, but what is very important is that we agree on your top concerns, which are affordability, making sure that your kids and families are safe, and then finally ensuring that what we're spending money on right now, for example, our chronic homelessness crisis, but it could be any other thing, is well spent money. I think that money should go for recovery treatment. We all have different opinions, but what is important is that we are local electeds, and we have to do the job of local government. And the best way to stick it to Trump, and that's what we're trying to do here, is to be a well-run blue city that gets the job done and treats our people right. And so that is what I'm going to try and keep on doing. All
right. Okay, I would like to have a round of applause. Thank you to all of our candidates. And that ends our program. If you guys want to hang around a little bit, talk to people, that's great. Thank you so much to everybody that came tonight.
right.